what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange on the Mesh Podcast Network, a monthly conversation about startups and small business with ideas, tools, and advice to operate your business more effectively. On today's show, business partners. You want them, you need them, but you need a prenuptial agreement before you hook up with them. And it's one of our favorite shows of the year. It's our annual Business Lessons from the Movies Podtacular edition. And we'll be joined by the founders of the Footcandle Film Society, Alan Jackson and Chris Frye. We'll give you some movie ideas to make it through the holidays with a minimum of conversation with your in-laws. Finally, we'll end up with our Small Business of the Month feature, where we'll highlight some interesting businesses that you could be checking out and maybe give you a few ideas for Christmas gifts. You never know. My name is Jeff Neuville. I'm your co-host. I'm the director of the Small Business Center at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. I'm joined by my co-host, Gary Muller, who is Dean of the School of Business, Industry, and Technology at Catawba Valley Community College. Gary, how are you doing?
Jeff, I'm doing great and looking forward to this all year long.
The holidays don't really start until we can sit down with Alan and Chris and talk about our movie choices.
It's true. And when I'm looking at movie choices, I talk to my wife, and she gets excited about what we're going to say. And worried, too.
This could be the one podcast of the year where our wives actually will listen to the end.
Yes, that's exactly correct.
So anyway, that's always good for us.
She also contributed to my small business of the month.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about that as we go forward. And I'm going to go ahead and welcome Alan and Chris to our show. Alan and Chris are here in the studio.
Thank you.
They sort of own the studio. But anyway,
we're happy to be with you.
Yeah, but we're happy to come down the hall and jump in and be a part of this.
Well, we know you've come a long way to be here. Sort of like the Star of Bethlehem shines this time of year, and you come to the manger.
Guys, I tell everybody I know that every year there's certain events and moments I look forward to. There's the start of ACC basketball season. There's Christmas morning with my family and kids. And there's the annual Podtacular Entrepreneur Exchange episode. So I'm so glad to be hitting it this year.
The start of ACC basketball season for a Wake Forest fan is not a good plan.
not quite as event worthy as maybe some others.
But you had a fine women's field hockey season.
Our field hockey team and our soccer teams were good. And we'll go to a bowl game for the third year in a row.
That's really cool. That's great. That's really cool.
Well, let's talk a little business. And I sent Gary an article from Joyce Rosenberg on the Associated Press about the perils of choosing a business partner. And the article was in the Charlotte Observer a few weeks ago and might have shown up in other places as well. And it talks about the importance of really doing due diligence on a business partner before you sign up with them. And sometimes perhaps the enticement of investment dollars might color your thinking a little bit, and you might quickly get together with that partner and then find that your goals and visions and work styles just are not compatible. And Gary, have you had some experience with this?
I have. As you know, I've talked to you a little bit before our podcast today. It hit home because as a young person coming right out of school, getting enthusiastic about working in a business and then starting some new ventures, which I did early on, the rose-colored glasses that I used to talk about with our clients in the past and our students, it really hits home. So when I talk about it, I think about it. It is so important to pick the right partners because it will come back to haunt you almost every time if you don't. Not just investigate your idea, but make sure you're in bed, in business with the right people. I mean, it is really true. It's not just talk. It's real.
Well, and the article says one of the things that you almost need to treat it as you're hiring an employee and go through a due diligence process of checking references and making sure you're compatible. And Alan and Chris, you guys started your own nonprofit organization, and you've been doing this for 5, 6,
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
And yet you still look very youthful and seem to get along with one another.
Started when they were 12.
Well, did it just work out that way, or did?
Well, we had a good situation in that Chris and I worked together in a company for the years leading up to that. So I do think it was good in that, you and I already had a business relationship. We met each other as business coworkers, hired into the company and worked together. So it would have been more difficult, I think, jumping in, starting like this nonprofit with someone that was either I just knew on a friendship basis or someone I knew around town and didn't really have the background with. But Chris and I, having worked together, we both, I think, had a greater comfort because of that and felt like we knew each other's working style and how our belief system and all. So
right. Fortunately, the company that we were working for is a creative company, and we had about 10 years doing that. So we shared creative ideas. We would bounce things off one another. So when it came time to do the film society, it was kind of like we kind of already knew how we thought, and so that helped. That helped tremendously.
Yeah. And one of the things the article talks about is trying to understand what business partners' short-term and long-term goals are, and I would think for starting a film society, you guys are hoping that you're creating something that's going to be a long-lasting organization and be there for some time. But from a business perspective, sometimes people might look at the business as something they want to spend their career at, but someone else might say this is a short-term investment that we want to sell and make lots of money and move on to the next thing.
And you need to understand that going in because it will cause conflict. And again, you have those rose-colored glasses. Will it all work out? Well, usually, if you haven't dotted the I and crossed the T, it doesn't end well. I mean, dotting the I and crossing the T, we talk about it all the time with agreements. Some people, when they're doing it, say, they don't want to get into that difficult conversation early on, but that's really the time to do it. Yeah. Because when something bad happens or not good, to make it a little bit less tough, that's not the time to be negotiating a contract or how we're going to do it, because usually you've gone that way. So getting together, and you mentioned it early on, and you can tell it's personal to me because I've learned some lessons that helped me over the last 20 years. But if you don't have that relationship like you did, having interviews and stuff, because, we've all interviewed people and they interview well, but they're not necessarily how they portrayed themselves when you get into business. So having that relationship, I think, is important. You're not going to have that all the time, or maybe even the majority of the time, but the more you know about the people you're going into business, the better you'll be.
Well, I almost think some of these situations where you hear these really tough stories with people that go into business together and they're just not working out because they're incompatible business styles started out a lot of times as friendships. People just knew each other as friends and said,
exactly right.
We got a great idea. We're all excited. You get caught up in the enthusiasm. But stopping and treating it, like you said, like a true interview, a business interview with one another to really make sure that your ultimate goals are compatible is really important. It's tough to do with a friend, and I think there's some people who say, you should never go into business with friends, and I think that's part of the reason why people feel that way. But you're right, though. It does haunt you for a really long time if that bad decision is made.
It helps me in every decision that I'm making, thinking about it. Because, you don't like to have those difficult conversations with friends because you said, it'll all work out. Well, actually having that agreement is a really good thing because it helps you, both of you, or the multiple people that might be in a partnership.
Well, I think it might help the friendship too, because
I think it does.
You don't want to strain the friendship because the business relationship went sour. If you have an agreement and you have something kind of set up between the two, then there's a clear point to say, all right, it's not working according to our agreement. We can part ways and still hopefully preserve a friendship.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and something the article does recommend is actually using a lawyer to write up a partnership agreement, in that if you ever have to unwind things, that will come in very, very handy. And spending a little bit of money up front might save you a lot of angst on the back end. So
absolutely.
So anyway, we wanted to touch base on that, but let's get to the reason why all of our listeners are still there, and that's they want their movie recommendations for what they're going to listen, what they're going to watch over the holidays with the family, and as I said, Alan and Chris are founders of the Footcandle Film Society, which is a nonprofit group that brings interesting and critically acclaimed movies to our area in Western North Carolina when they often might not make it to our local multiplex. And they're two dudes who love movies, and they have their own podcast as well that you should be listening to, Footcandle Film. And we're very happy that they can join us again. Our premise is we all love the holiday season. We love spending time with family, friends, going to parties, getting gifts, giving gifts. But at some point in time, we're going to want some downtime when you're going to want to spend quality time with Netflix or your on demand or however you're going to be getting your movies these days. So our job is to give you some recommendations that you can pop in or pop on and enjoy with the family that have some sort of business lesson. They don't have to be a business movie, but hopefully we can wrangle some sort of business lesson out of them. So that's sort of the premise of what we're going to be doing. And each of us has a couple of movie ideas, and we have not conferred with one another.
No, we have not.
So there is a chance that maybe we're going to duplicate. I don't know.
Have we ever had that happen before?
I don't think we have.
No, I think we've all kind of dodged that in the past. That's
but
impressive.
anyway, we're going to let Chris go first with one of his movie selections. So, Chris, hit us.
My movie ties in very nicely with the article that you brought up. It's a movie. It's streaming on Netflix. It's called A Futile and Stupid Gesture. And this is not referring to starting a business, but it did come out of, it tells the story of Doug Kinney and Henry Beard, who founded Harvard Lampoon first. Or they didn't found it, but they were writing for it. Then they went on to do National Lampoon. Then they may have done some movies you've heard of called Caddyshack and Animal House. But these two guys were friends in college, and their working relationship as it went on to be the National Lampoon and with some of the business stuff that happened, it did get kind of dicey. But it is a funny movie because it deals with comedy, not for the kids probably because some of the stuff that goes on. But I recommend it, A Futile and Stupid Gesture. The people that are in the movie, Will Forte plays Doug Kinney. So if you're familiar with Saturday Night Live, so he's in it. There are a lot of cameo appearances in it. I really like it. So
it's not really a documentary. It
is not a documentary.
Okay.
So that, it is a narrative film. So that they're actors and stuff. But it's funny. But there's definitely some business lessons that get to learn. One of the things that I learned from the film was when they went to try, because they were doing a magazine. That's kind of how it was like. At Harvard it was a magazine. Then National Lampoon was a magazine before they started doing movies. No one really wanted to give them a shot because they're like, no, this is not going to work for a mass audience. They basically got on with the publisher that did Good Housekeeping. Somehow they kind of got on with that. So it was kind of a weird thing. And then because of contracts and stuff, things got way out of hand. But anyways, it's an interesting, fascinating movie and does, be careful who you do get into business with. They were friends, but then Doug Kinney unfortunately had some skeletons in his closet with like drugs and alcohol and stuff. So there were problems there. But A Futile and Stupid Gesture. I recommend that highly.
Sounds like a great business movie.
And just the title of it makes me think of Animal House. I seem to recall a quote from that was pretty good, and it sort of reminds me of I was just checking. There was a movie that Alan recommended last year, I think called Too Funny to Fail.
That's right. It was
which I ended up watching.
Did you?
And enjoying.
You enjoyed it?
Yes.
Okay, good. It was very interesting. I thought just nothing else. I've seen the film Chris was recommending and can vouch for it as well. It does really play in that poor choice of partners. The two guys had great. They were both funny individuals. They knew how to do humor, but they had very different takes on what they should want to do with their careers and their living. And that's where the things really started to divert between them and cause some problems. And it did have major impact on their friendship. It had major impact on the business as a whole and its success. So very interesting. Yeah.
Well, tying into that, not my movies, but you think of all the Steve Jobs movies and
that's
how
right.
the relationships start. The Facebook, which is now in center front, and I think it happens in most every business. Just a matter whether you go that way and then you come back together, or you don't.
Well, think about probably the greatest source of drama when it comes to learning about companies is the interpersonal relationships that evolve or devolve over the course of time. Exactly. So I think some of the best stories we have about entrepreneurs or visionaries is we're curious about their relationship with other people and how their reliance on certain people or their fighting with others really affects the success of the company. So it was very, very obvious in the National Lampoon's case. So, it was a funny movie, interesting movie.
Yeah, it's interesting, from a Footcandle Film Society standpoint, a lot of times the movies Alan and I talk about on the podcast are kind of, there's something kind of off about them, the way they're put together, constructed, or there's something kind of quirky about them. I'm not going to go into much detail about what sets this film apart, but it is not it's not a documentary, like you said, Jeff. It's not. It's a narrative film, but some aspects of it, let's just say, they kind of work creatively with the truth.
Yeah.
Narratively.
And they admit to it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's not like it's not like a tricking people.
Sometimes they're breaking the fourth wall by addressing the camera. So
Okay.
it's just interestingly constructed.
No, and I enjoy Will Forte. He's fun.
He is pretty good in that role too. So is Doug Kinney. Mm-hmm.
All right, that's good. I've got it down. All right, Alan, what say you?
So my film is also a fairly new film, just in the last year. It was in movie theaters, I think, early last year, if I remember correctly. Nominated for some Academy Awards for Best Actress. Didn't win anything, I don't believe, but it was an interesting film. I had a chance to see it a few months ago, and I think it's a great example of not only entrepreneur, but also some great lessons to pull from it. It's a film called Molly's Game. Stars Jessica Chastain. It is based on a memoir of a Molly Bloom, who a real person, who was she was a skier, a big Olympic skier, who had a injury that kind of derailed that career. So then she goes into running a multi-million-dollar underground poker game. So of course, like natural progression, but the idea of the story is the movie is based on her memoir that she's written after all these years of experience. She basically got into the high-stakes poker world through a job that she got with a guy that was running these games, and she helped to run them. Eventually, she started doing it on her own. And it was extremely successful. I mean, she was a very, very savvy entrepreneur. She did all this by her mid-30s. I mean, she was raking in millions of dollars, and like high-stakes poker players all around the world were coming in to play. The problem, which she self-admits, and which is where I think we got some good lessons from this, is that she became almost too trusting and became a little too high-minded for what she was doing. What that did is that her game started to attract people from the mob and other people. And all of a sudden she started becoming the bank for them, meaning she was basically using her money to fund them with hopes that she would get the money back at some point. And so she was really trying to cater to the personal needs of her customers, which was great. She cared very immensely about how these games were successful and cared about the people that were playing, and she wanted it to be the best experience she could. But in doing so, she got herself involved in some illegal activity. Not by choice, not by her saying, I want to be a criminal. It was more of I want to do right by these players, so I'm going to do this. But in doing so, I broke the law. And now I'm a criminal, and now I've got to deal with that. And I think I haven't read the memoir, but I know the movie is very closely based on it. And you definitely get a sense of understanding what she did right and what she did wrong. So I think there's lessons on both sides. I was more impressed with her as an individual, just the drive and desire she had to do what she was doing. And you really started to understand when things got way over her head. You could sympathize with where she was at that point, And I think maybe on a much, much smaller scale, entrepreneurs have a lot of those same issues where you start to say, all right, if I do this could launch me to another level, but it could also expose me to these opportunities for failure or these potential concerns. She obviously had that exaggerated to 100 on a much grander scale. But just a really good movie. It also is a good movie about understanding that, it's okay to make mistakes and what you can learn from those mistakes when you're an entrepreneur doing a program. The need to stay grounded is also kind of reminded too, because, again, the whole failure for her is she just got up and up and up these layers. And if she had kept it at a manageable level that was still very successful, she may not have made quite the millions of dollars as quickly, but she still would have had a very, very successful business. So
that's a relatively common story of success.
Yeah, this one's just amped up.
Grow too fast or too far.
And that you definitely feel her succumbing to that in the film. You can tell she's overwhelmed, and she's getting to a point where she doesn't know if this is the right path, but she makes the choice, and now she's got to live with it. So,
well, and I'll sort of throw out, and maybe this is a bit of a reach, but as I recall, I saw that movie, and there was one particular player that was sort of a problem player, but he was a very big fish in the game, and when he and Molly, the main character, sort of. When they start to have issues, he sort of does what he can to help destroy the game and destroy her.
That's right.
And to me, it's earlier in my career, I spent a lot of time selling to large retailers, and Walmart was one of them. And there's always the concern there that if you have too much business with any one customer, if you make a mistake, they can sort of put you out of business. And you know, her big player did everything he could to put her out of business. So that's just another lesson that a little bit of a reach, but it's a business.
No, that's great. Well, I think it was a good movie. I think it's an interesting movie. I was more fascinated with Molly Bloom as a person and her history of watching the film.
And Jessica Chastain, she was the lead.
That's right. Correct? She was very good. Very good in that. I'll say, too, it has nothing to do with the business side of it, really, but Kevin Costner plays her father. And I back in the early 90s, was a huge Kevin Costner fan, so it's always good to see him in a good role nowadays. They have a really great scene at a park bench. I won't go into details, but just a really great dialogue. Has nothing to do with business, but it's a great father-daughter moment. And just
something good to watch with for the holidays with father-daughter.
I mean, you know, the movie's a little on the radar side, I think, for a lot more heavy language and all. But
not the 10-year-old daughter.
Not the young daughter.
But the moment, the scene, the two of them, man, it's
good stuff.
It got a little dusty in the my living room from when I watched it, if I remember correctly. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Good movie. And I think there's a lot of interesting lessons. Be driven by the first half of the movie and what she's able to accomplish and the drive she shows, but be warned by the latter half of the choices she makes and the repercussions it had on her. So, yeah.
All right. Gary, what's your movie choice?
My two movies are very far apart. So I'll change this very businesslike and professional to the Santa Claus movies by Tim Allen.
Okay. All right.
I know how everybody's seen. Of course, we're watching lots of Christmas movies at our house now, and so we picked that because one of the scenes or methods or whatever themes of the movie or how efficient they are and how they have to make sure that the elves get everything ready for Christmas.
Yeah, right.
So forget all the other
is this like
family stuff, which really
like a labor issue, or
a labor issue, how to make sure they're happy
Fair
and
enough.
how they're working to make sure that they get everything accomplished so they can get all the gifts to the children on Christmas morning. And there's a lot of other different things going on, but it just hit me over the weekend I was watching. I said, Santa Claus has his own business that he's got to run to make sure that we're all happy.
Gary, there's actually several movies I can think of that are about Santa Claus and the whole workshop mentality and kind of trying to structure the whole operational efficiency of it. There was one movie very similar. It was an animated movie from just a few years ago. Or maybe it was like Santa Claus's brother or something, or something. Anyway, it really dug kind of deep into the whole mechanics of how to deliver all the. I mean, that's pretty cool.
It really looks at the efficiency and how they're doing. You can see that there's really a business behind how he makes us happy.
I would recommend that our listeners go to YouTube and look for the Saturday Night Live clip on Glengarry Ross with Alec Baldwin.
Always be cobbling.
Always be cobbling, and that's.
Can my younger kids watch that?
Your younger kids can watch that. I know how old your younger kids are. They're not that young.
They're 20. That's right.
I mean, it was on network television, so I think it's safe to watch. Although there might have been a risque comment here or there, but this is Alex Baldwin in his pre-Donald Trump days. Back when he was just being Alec Baldwin, whatever that's worth. I don't know. So.
But ripping on the whole Glenn Ross thing with the Santa Claus in the workshop, it was great. That was a good skit.
Anyway, all right. Well, I'm going to sort of go back a little bit as well, not too far, and the movie that I recommend when I think of business movies comes back to Moneyball, which was a Michael Lewis book about. The baseball team, the Oakland A's, and their general manager, Billy Beane, which is played by Brad Pitt in the movie, and how he and his assistant, Jonah Hill, use sabermetrics to determine how they can assemble a winning baseball team at a much lower price than the big market teams who are spending crazy money on free agents, and they go out and look at various statistics on base percentage, and they hire all these. They go out and find all these obscure players that no one else really wants, including the manager of the Oakland A's, who doesn't really want them. And the manager is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who never really struck me as a sports guy, but he's good at playing a surly manager, and ultimately. They come together, win lots of games, make it to the playoffs, don't ultimately win the World Series, but he puts together a winning team by really looking at numbers and analytics and things differently. And to me, from a business lesson perspective, it really comes down to trying to find your competitive advantage or find a competitive advantage. And that if you're a small retailer, you're not going to be the low price guy when you compare yourself to the big box people, whether it be Best Buy or Walmart. You're not going to beat them on price. At least you're not going to beat them on price for long. So you really have to find something that you can do differently and still provide some value to your customers. And to me, this movie helps you think like that, in that they recognize they're not going to be able to spend the same amount of dollars as the New York Yankees or the teams with big budgets. So they have to really take a step back and say, how do we compete a little bit differently and still be effective there?
I think that's a great message. I mean, figuring how to be successful, because not everybody's going to be successful the same way because they don't have the same resources or the same whatever it happens to be to make the business work.
Well, what I think it's a great reminder too is that we talk about entrepreneur movies, we talk about business movies. Is remembering that entrepreneur spirit can be added to any industry, any field. I mean, so baseball, you would just not think of baseball as needing strategy in business and entrepreneurship, but there you go. It absolutely can and does. So just any endeavor can benefit from that kind of spirit added to it.
And I guess it also says build the right team. People have to know what their roles are on the team and embrace them and accept them. And if you do, good things can happen.
So Aaron Sorkin wrote the screenplay for Moneyball. He was also the writer and director of Molly's Game, the film I mentioned. So nice little connection there.
And he wrote, you mentioned, we talked about Facebook. He wrote the
Social Network as well.
Yeah, so.
You loved Moneyball, didn't you? So no, I'm joking.
Not as big a fan of Moneyball.
I know you did not.
Okay.
So that's okay.
There's a business lesson there.
But there's a message too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's good. I actually met Billy Bean once. It was right before the movie came out, and I was at a statistics conference because that's what I do for fun. And
I feel better about myself right now.
It was in Vegas, so at least it had that going for it. But it was before the movie came out, and I didn't know anything about the whole story, so it was really neat hearing him talk about statistics in the baseball world and then see the movie, and so it was kind of nice.
And I'm pretty sure that Billy Bean is still the general manager of the Oakland A's. And,
I think so.
And we're 2018 now, and actually I think I saw in my newspaper today now they're talking about building a new baseball park out in Oakland, right on the bay and everything. So good for them. Hopefully
that's great.
And hopefully Billy Bean will someday get that World Series championship in Oakland. So.
Yeah, that would be nice to see. So.
All right, Chris, give us another one.
So this is another, just so happens this year, both of my movies are based on a real life person. So this is a narrative film, but it is a biography about this person. It stars Jack Black, and it's called The Polka King. And this is
Polka King, right?
King,
okay,
yeah.
got it. Right.
And so it's the polka legend John Lewan, I think is how he says his name. But he was in Pennsylvania. He had a small little gift shop, and he performed at local events. He would do polka music. Well, and he was, semi-successful. Then he had a dream to become the biggest polka player in the entire world, and it kind of got ahead of him. And he was going to fund this by basically he did a Ponzi scheme. Unfortunately, he took people's money, and they would promise all these things, and then yes, it did help fund the polka band, but unfortunately, he did not do what he said he was going to do, and it was a Ponzi scheme. So the movie is very interesting just from someone who has a lot of charisma. Obviously, people loved him. They trusted him with their money, but then he, unfortunately, does bad things. But it is an entertaining movie. It stars, like I said, Jack Black. It also has Jenny Slate, who was on Saturday Night Live for a while. She plays his wife, and Jason Schwartzman is also in the movie. So a couple of actors that I really like. It is fun, but also it is serious in the fact that he was robbing people's money. So business lessons to be learned about you may have a business idea, but you need to consider what you're doing. And he ends up hurting people that they were big fans of his, and then he really does genuinely feel bad about it once everything comes crashing down. So the Polka King, and honestly, I didn't plan this, but both of my movies are also readily available on Netflix, so it's an easy way to watch either one of those.
How old is that movie?
This one came out in 2017, but it was actually released on Netflix in 2018.
Okay.
So yeah, and actually the other one came out in 2018 as well. So these are recent releases on Netflix.
Well, see, that's why we have you guys. Gary and I watch the same movies over and over and over again, and you guys actually watch a lot of new movies. So we appreciate
Get some new ones in the mix there. So.
Mine are from 20 years ago.
That's all right.
Yeah.
The lessons still hold up.
That's
right.
right.
Good. So.
And I'm always into music oriented movies.
Are you into polka?
I'm willing to learn. I'm up for some polka.
Good.
Yeah.
This is why I love this podcast. Polka and money and Ponzi schemes. Who would have thought that
Again, nice
work together?
variety of things tied together there.
Well, and I like Jack Black.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that. All right.
The Polka King.
Yes.
Who's the director of that film? Do you remember?
Maya Forbes. Not familiar with her
not
work.
familiar with her.
This may have been one of her first films, I think.
Okay.
But,
No, I will check that one out too.
fair enough.
Hi, I'm Alan,
I'm Chris.
and we're the co-hosts of Footcandle Films, a movie review and film discussion show here on themesh.tv.
Each episode, we talk about some new movies, cover some film news, and have some recommendations.
And trust us, we're just as likely to talk about the latest Jim Jarmusch film as we are the newest Transformers installment.
Hold on, don't get too crazy.
Well, okay, maybe not that bad. But you can find our show and all our episodes on themesh.tv. Plus, you can subscribe to get new episodes delivered right to your computer or mobile device.
We'll see you in the ticket line.
All right, Alan, what do you got?
So mine is actually one I'm surprised I hadn't brought it up in previous years because it is a great film. It's one of those ones that I think a lot of people know of. It is also based on a real person, so I think kind of a lot of our movies seem to be based on true stories these days. But Aaron Brockovich, gosh, that was what, late 90s? Early, maybe 2000s? I don't know the year exactly, but it's been a little while. Julia Roberts, starring and directed by Steven Soderbergh. It's a legal drama, but it's based on a true story of a woman, Aaron Brockovich, who helps with the largest settlement ever paid in a direct action lawsuit. So there's a lot of business dealings in the film because, of course, she's dealing with a company that is being accused of having polluted and kind of endangered the lives of a lot of people, and she's helping corral the people together for a class action lawsuit on this. It was a huge lawsuit at the time, huge class action settlement. And it really was driven so much, at least in the stories we hear, by her desire to do the right thing in the situation. Now, how much is driven also by some possible future fame and fortune? There may be some of that in there. But ultimately, at least what the film tells us, it shows us is it's really truly a social responsibility situation. You know, I think a lot of people watch the movie and think that the business lesson is, well, if you're fiery and spunky and you just go after it and speak your mind, that good things happen. And yes, she does have that kind of personality. But I got more out of it of thinking of there was a lot of risk in doing what they did. There was a lot of damage they could have done to their own personal careers. But ultimately, she still said, this is the right thing to do. This is the right way to help these people, the right way to right this wrong. And she's willing to take the risk to go do it. So just that drive. I mean, I think we've all kind of hinted around in our stories about, you get tempted in business sometimes to do the wrong thing or to do things for the wrong reasons. And there may be some short-term gains from it, but ultimately it is going to come back in some way and can have a damaging effect. I think this is a film that's a good reminder that, sometimes it's worth the risk to do the right thing and to be able to sleep at night feeling like you're doing something for a good cause. So I think it's a good movie. It's one I haven't honestly seen in quite a while, but I remember at the time it made a pretty good impact. So yeah.
I really like that movie too.
Yeah.
It's got a good message.
Mm-hmm. And I think you can look at her in that movie as really as you talk about being an entrepreneur, or you find entrepreneurs in places other than business, and she's working for a lawyer, but the way she approached her work was very entrepreneurial.
Absolutely.
In that
She was passionate about what she was doing.
She was really digging and looking under every rock to help resolve these issues. So, and I believe that was her Academy Award performance.
It was, yeah. So I'm batting 100% on really strong female driven character performances this year on my recommendations, which is awesome. So. I think it's a good reminder, too. We think about business movies, and I think they typically skew more predominantly male. But I love highlighting ones where we've got some people that maybe don't fit what cultural mode of entrepreneur always is, but these are true entrepreneurs who did some great things. And whether they had bad results from it at times, some of them did, but, they're still great models of that drive and passion to do something good. So, yeah.
Oh, good deal. All right, Gary, what you got?
Okay, mine's a little bit of switch from Santa Claus movies.
All right.
So Remember the Titans.
I thought you were going Die Hard for us. Okay, we're going to go Remember the Titans?
We could do Die Hard. You want to talk about that? I like that, too.
Yeah, well, somebody's favorite holiday movie.
I love sports movies, and I was actually watching it recently, and Saturday afternoon I said, Remember the Titans from a leadership standpoint. And it's got so many different messages on it. And it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
That's good. Leadership, and also talking about diversity. I thought about when you emailed to us, and trying to make things happen, and staying with your convictions and moving forward. And I love it because it does have a happy ending. I mean, other than the one boy that passes away, but that's it.
Well, you're just ruining it for everyone now. Come on.
Yeah. He didn't say which person.
Okay.
No. Yeah. So you're going to be left guessing the whole movie now.
Somebody dies? Uh-oh.
Okay, all right.
You made me speechless as usual.
Well,
it's a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
I'll try not to give any more detail.
No, it's one of my favorite go-to movies just to have something on sometimes.
If I've got a half hour and it's on, I'll watch the last half hour.
I love it.
Which my wife, by the way, hates when I watch the last hour or half hour.
Oh, so no, that's the best. If you've seen the movie before, it's okay to watch
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I said, she said, why do you do it? I said, because I know what's going to
Yeah,
happen.
you already
and I
know
feel
the-
good when it's all over.
You know the previous hour. You don't need to watch it
That's
again.
exactly
You want to see the last little bit. Well, I mean, I think everything you hit on right with it. It's that compiling a team and, fighting back whatever notions other people may have about who you should be working with or who should be part of your team. You go based on skill. You go based on passion and talent, not on skin color or status or anything else.
And he challenged everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
And he plenty of times he could have quit and just said, hey, this just isn't worth the fight.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good
it's a
movie.
good message.
Very
from my
solid.
standpoint. Thank you.
Solid pick.
God bless you.
All right.
Bring me up from Santa Claus.
I thought the Santa Claus pick was good.
I
thought it was
wanted to have a
inspired.
little bit of diversity.
Well, you brought some actual holiday movie into our
that's
podcast.
exactly-
I think
that's what I was
that's excellent as well. Okay.
Thank you.
So for my next movie is it's the holiday. During the holidays, I'm probably betting that all of us and most of our listeners will order something online, and whether it be Amazon or another service that will magically get it to our doorstep in a day or two. So that makes me think about logistics and distribution and that sort of stuff. So work with me here. So my movie recommendation is one that I know that you all get behind, is the 2015 movie The Martian with Matt Damon, who gets left on Mars. They think he's dead, and his folks leave him there, and they're headed home, very sad, but unaware that he is still alive. And NASA has to put together a recovery mission and all the things that go into putting that plan together, and timelines, and everybody working to put a refueling the spacecraft and everything. And just from a logistical perspective, when you think of NASA and everything that goes into putting a space flight together, it comes down to logistics. And you think about Amazon and all the things that go on in distribution centers. And anyway, that's my correlation there.
That's a great recommendation. Just thinking of the situation the character played by Matt Damon finds himself in on Mars. He's like, okay, this is what I've got to work with. I don't have a choice. I'm going to make this. I'm going to find a way to make this work. And yeah, that seems very entrepreneurial. Like, okay, here we go. Let's do this.
Well, the part of the film I think even is also a good example is all the people on the ground, how they're having to handle the public relations side of what's going on. Again, something every business deals with when you've got something that maybe goes wrong or something that's opportunities. How do you manage it? What do you share? What do you not share? What do you say? How do you spin it? Sometimes I thought the stuff on the ground was just as interesting as the stuff up on the.
I thought Jeff Daniels is very good. He's sort of the leader on the ground, and he's willing to take some of the heat.
Jeff Daniels, linking back to the rest of our episodes, was on what was the show? Was it The Newsroom or something on HBO, which was an Aaron Sorkin production, which was right. I mean. Tie everything together, people. I'm tying it all together.
Also linking back to Jessica Chastain, who's
that's true. She's
in The Martian and everything. And
wait a minute, did Aaron Sorkin write the Santa Claus? I'm just trying to figure out if there's a connection there. I got to figure if there's a connection there or not. So,
amazing.
So anyway, a lot of good '70s music in there. Some Starman and a lot of fun stuff. A few dramatic points here and there. Dramatic points here and there in the movie, but overall another happy ending that you can bring the family together, and it's all good.
Well, and the fact is, the movie it could have been very, very dour and scary and all, but they kept it light, and they kept it, even though it was a very treacherous situation. I love the tone that it was a little more hopeful, a little more playful the whole time. It wasn't just. It could have been so depressing and scary, but they kept it at a good level where I think people really responded well to it. So.
And at the very end of the movie, Matt Damon's like talking to a class of future astronauts and really talking like an entrepreneur, and that things are going to go wrong, and you can either give up or you can roll up your sleeves and get it done. And so
that's a good pick.
Sort of good ending there. So anyway, now we've each thrown out two. I don't know if anybody has any others they just want to give a quick shout out to or anything.
I'll throw out one just as a very quick, and it's more just for fun. I can't believe over all these years, I don't think we've talked about the film Office Space, at least not according to any of our notes.
No, it's on my list of potentials. Yes.
Okay, it's a Mike Judge film from maybe 15 years ago. I don't know for sure, and it's a satire of the American workplace. It's a rated R movie. It's not one for the kids. But it's exploring this whole corporate culture of 1990s software company. And really, if you wanted a checklist of every cliche you could imagine from a corporate work environment and looking to see if you see some of those own cliches in your own workplace, it's really funny. But I spend more time actually cringing during the movie because I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I've done that before, or I've seen that happen in a business I've been a part of or a project I was a part of. The idea of is the birthday parties that you got to have, the celebration, the birthday cake for whenever somebody has a birthday, just how routine and just so regimented and almost like methodical that becomes. I think they have efficiency experts come in and try to understand who's doing what job. And you start to realize there's somebody in the office that all he does is basically pass one thing to the next person, but yet he sees his role as so critical and can't imagine what the company would do if he wasn't there to just pass that along.
He's a people person.
He's a people person. It is a good reminder to us sometimes that we've got to break outside of those molds. And I think when we find businesses that are settling into some of these routine molds, it's the same molds that when we find companies that just get so big and so bureaucratic and so corporate that they lose identity of who they're really supposed to be. I barely have an idea in this movie of what the product is this company actually does. We don't really know, and that's not the point. It's that they're all toiling in the same corporate world in the same standard way, and the company itself has lost sight of who it is. So it's a great satire.
Well, there's some Y2K issues in there.
Well, there are some of those as well. Y2K, so it's very timely. That would have been, I guess, late 90s when this came about.
But I do like the two consultants. They're both named Bob. I've got a meeting with the Bobs.
It's funny, but it's also moments where you're just like, ooh, yeah, I've seen that happening in my own workplace, and that's something I need to remember, that we've gotten away from who we're supposed to be. And, the treatment of employees, the boss-employee relationships, all are just really hit on. It's actually a really smart satire, despite all the humor in it. it has a lot to say about how businesses were starting to grow in the 90s. So,
and to me, that's another one that you can just hop in and watch that.
oh yeah,
for a while,
yeah. I don't even. I mean, the plot itself is pretty ridiculous. It's just you follow it for the scenes,
Yes.
and like identifying things you see in your own place. Yeah. Well, and the main character even goes through a little bit of a self-realization of, what am I doing? You know, I feel like I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm not invested in my job. I don't care to be here. So you find him kind of on a little bit of a journey to figure out what he wants to do with his life. So it's some interesting messages from it.
Well, I sent out an email to some of my friends asking them for their movie selections, and I'm not going to get into detail, but I'll just share some of the things that they threw out. And actually, one of them was The Martian, so thank you for that one.
They contributed nicely.
But one of my friends said, Home Alone, How to Defend Your Home on a Shoestring Budget.
That's great.
Trading Places, Learn the Value of $1. Mm-hmm. School of Rock, How to Succeed Even When the World Thinks You're a Washed-Up Loser. You know, and plenty of opportunity for the host to speak from experience, I think. Thank you from Strachan, University of Illinois. Yeah. One of my friends suggested Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Crisis Management, Staying Cool as They Manage Their Dying Ship, which is low on fuel.
Wow.
So, that's pretty good.
And the last one was the original Vacation movie, How to Sell a Car, you know, when they're selling a car to Clark Griswold and he ends up with the family truckster.
The family truckster.
Yeah, so those are some other perhaps more obscure links to business ideas that came from my twisted group of friends. So thanks
They all go
to
to Carolina?
Oh,
I think they did, actually.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Gary. Well, wasn't it Eugene Levy that sold the car to Clark Griswold, I think, as the car dealer?
I think it might be.
Yeah, that was a great sales job there.
That's another National Lampoon piece, isn't it?
Yeah,
So they're
all connected.
Things
People.
have come full circle.
It's all connected.
So, all right, we're going to wind up with our small business recommendations of the month, where we might have come across an interesting small business that we think you should be checking out. Chris, do you have one that you want to share with us?
I do, and if this actually comes from a film that was submitted to our film festival this past year, the film was a documentary called Sufra, and I would have used that as one of my recommendations. However, they are still on the festival circuit, so the only way you can see the movie is if you're fortunate enough to be at a festival where they're screening it.
So maybe it'll be a recommendation next year.
Could be.
It better be, or my wife's going to be pissed because she wanted you to use that one.
Yeah.
Well, and what you can do, which is something that your wife had told me about, which I think she has done, is you can support this film and the person who is in it. Her name is Miriam Shar. She's a refugee in Lebanon, and she got the idea, very entrepreneurial, hey, it's hard for us to get jobs. I love making food. I'm going to start a food truck. And they did. And it was awesome, but you can support this business. They do have a cookbook. And if you go to soufrafilm.com, and that's Soufra, Soufra, that's the name of the business that they start, soufrafilm.com, you can't see the film yet, but you can purchase the cookbook. And believe me, you can't see the film yet, but if you did, the recipes and the food they make looks amazing. And they have pictures of it on the website so that you can see. So I'm recommending the cookbook that is from a small business that was a food truck that was started.
And my wife has purchased the cookbook. So
has she fixed you any of the meals yet?
She's done some experimenting with it. It's very good. Very good.
Awesome.
Excellent.
No, and I mean, this could be a recommendation whenever the film's available for people to see. It's a good film. Just, it's unfortunately, there's not any way for anybody to see it right now. So it would fly in the face of your whole what can you watch over the holidays to get away from family.
I'm
so let's keep it on the hopper whenever it's available.
You guys are playing by the rules, and we appreciate that.
Whenever it comes about, I think it could definitely pop up on somebody's list.
Of course, our listeners can probably see films like that if they want to attend next year's Footcandle Film Festival.
That was a nice segue there, Jeff. Very nice. Very nice plug.
Was it in September? September of 2019?
It's 27th through the 29th?
That's correct.
Of 2019.
All right. Mm-hmm. Alan, you have a small business you want to share?
I do. So movies, kind of tying this back to movies a little bit, comic book movies are all the rage, have been for several years now. All the superhero movies, they make tons of money, and there's one coming out every month, it seems like now. But the key phrase there was the word comic book, because that's where most of these characters obviously got their start. They were comic books. Comic books have been around since 1940s, 1930s, that time frame. I, growing up, have been an avid comic book reader. Love the format. I love the graphical visualization of stories and the serialized storytelling behind them. So I pop into a comic book store from time to time, may pick up some stuff. Had gotten some of my kids involved in them a while back as well. And, it's just a great art form. I love it. I'm a big fan. So the challenge is always finding out where you can buy these, where you can go to actually check these out. Every city has different comic book stores, and they may sell toys, they may sell graphic novels and other things as well. The challenge I've always had with any of these places that are very niche, they've catered to a certain audience, is that it's never always felt very welcoming. You go into a place, and it's just if the people there working there kind of all know each other and they know their clientele, but they're very kind of closed off. You just don't feel like you can walk into a store like this and just talk to the owner or ask questions and really kind of explore and get to learn some new things from it. It always felt like I was more intruding on a club that I wasn't a part of. So it's like, well, I don't really feel comfortable going in. That's a big thing with me in stores in general. It's like I don't like going into feeling like I'm out of place. If I'm looking for something, whether it's a hardware store or anything like that. I like it when people are actually willing to come up and say, hey, what do you need some help with? And let me talk you through some ideas. So there's a comic book store here in Hickory that I've actually started going to and actually got to meet the owner. And I think they do it right. It's a very relaxed environment. But every time I go in, I'm greeted, I'm talked to. I'm like, hey, have you checked out this? I know what kind of stuff you like, Alan. I think you might like this title as well. And it's just really cool because I feel like, these are people who want to cater to the customers. And even a couple times I'm looking for something in particular, and he's like, I know it's not on the shelf, but I think I've got some back. Let me go find it for you. And it's just willing to help and make it a great environment. So it's a place called Time Tunnel Comics. It's here in Hickory. I guess I know most of our listeners are worldwide. We've got, people all over the world listening to the show. So you're not going to be able to go to this store. But yet I think it's more of a model that is really important for any of these kind of specialty shops to follow.
Well, I think the customer service is for any business.
Well, absolutely. So I'll go ahead and call him out, and he doesn't know him. Jacob Edwards is the owner of this comic shop. Really great guy. And again, he's just the one that I walk in. He knows what stuff I like. He has it ready for me. He will talk to me about what's going on. He'll give me some recommendations. That's great. And his other employees are the same way too. So what I love more than anything is I looked at their website because I was just kind of curious. And they have like a little mantra on their website. I was just going to read really quick, which I thought was great. It says, in an era full of online retailers, we try to make the experience of walking into a shop, looking at what you're buying, and talking shop with us an experience worthwhile. Any idiot can mark down a book. It takes a quality idiot to help customers make informed purchases that make them want to keep reading comics. We strive to be your favorite idiots. So it's like, that's exactly it. That's what I want out of it. So, it's actually got me back into a comic book store every once in a while just to check out and see what's going on. And again, I love the art and I love kind of the format in general. And it's enjoyable when you can go into a place and you feel like you're welcomed and actually people want to be there to help you. So it's a good mantra for any small business that has a retail presence, but especially with a more specialty shop like this where it hasn't always been the case I've seen in places. So it's Time Tunnel Comics here in Hickory, North Carolina. I think they're doing a great job so far. So
Very good. All right. Gary, what are you going to tout today?
Well, my small business of the month's in line with sweets. What a surprise. It's called Cupcake-ish Bar and Sweet Treats. And that started in Spartanburg, South Carolina as a bakery. And now they're branching out. They actually have a new distribution strategy, which is really what tied me into bringing it to us today. The new owner is Linda Rice. They just started relatively recently. They were a bakery, and now they're venturing into vending machines for cupcakes. Actually, I thought they might have been on Shark Tank because I saw somebody do something very similar to it. But I ran into them at Concord Mills while my wife was shopping. I was wandering the mall looking for business ideas for our podcast.
Oh, that's a good place to do that,
and there was a vending machine with cupcakes. And Redback, and they had a very good bakery, so they're probably very good products. $5 though, because I brought my wife out, Tammy, to look at it. She said, "That's great, but $5 might be a lot for a cupcake." I said, "Yeah, but if you're at the mall, you have a little bit different pricing perspective." But a very interesting thing. It'll be interesting to understand and then follow to see whether they're they grow from where they are today.
So Gary, just help me. I'm just trying to visualize. So it's a vending machine, just like
Sitting
it would be
right in the middle. You're walking between the stores, and it's right in the middle between. And I literally was looking around, looking for business ideas.
Yeah.
Seriously. And
are they in like little boxes and they drop out, or are they
kind of like?
Are they going to get damaged when they drop down? Do they drop down like the potato chips or anything like that? Like,
Well,
boom.
As long as you don't get your hand stuck, you're trying to get the
that's
box
exactly
out of the
right.
box.
No, but I didn't buy one because it was $5.
But it was like, but it's like an unmanned situation.
Yes.
So you
No,
really
it's
go
just-
up, put your
just like
money
getting
in,
a Coke
and you get a
machine,
cupcake.
or getting pretzels, or getting
That's pretty neat.
And first thing my wife said, "Well, boy, it's shelf life because you want to turn that over pretty quickly." But I thought it was very interesting. I hadn't ever seen cupcakes in a vending machine, and it just looks like any other vending machine you'd see. That was probably one of the issues that people wouldn't necessarily see that if they weren't looking for it. I mean, it was although if people are looking for food, they may look into a vending machine, what's in it. But it was unique. I've never, like I said, seen cupcakes. I guess maybe there are some.
That's neat.
Have them, but it's like a one portion thing. It just looks like a sundae is what it looked like, because it was strawberry shortcake and they had brownie.
Wow. Was capitalizing a little bit on cupcakes have kind of become a little more specialty items. I think people go to cities because of certain cupcake makers now, and places getting really popular. So to put it in a busy thoroughfare type of place and make it easy for people to get, that's pretty good. That's a good idea.
That's exactly. It's a high volume.
Yeah.
The malls is probably a good place to do it.
That'd be interesting how they're doing on that.
Yeah. See, a year from now when we're doing our podcast for movies, we'll see if they'll
come back and
Cupcake is still around.
Or we may have a vending machine out in the hallway here with cupcakes. Right. So that could be a good sign there too.
It'd be nice if you guys could have us.
Jeff, to bring cupcakes to.
You never know. All right. Well, my recommendation for Small Business of the Month comes from a friend of the show, Debbie Sawyer, who sent me this business idea. It was started by a woman named Mary Winchenbach in Somerville, Maine. She is the owner and founder of a small business called Tirdy Works, Tirdy Works. And she's created a booming business that sells crafts made from moose droppings.
Oh.
And
wow.
A nice follow-up to the cupcake.
Here's a
I
quote.
was hungry, and now I'm not.
Here's a quote from Mary. It says this is what she says. Yeah, you need to actually check this out online to make sure I'm giving you a legitimate business here, because I did. Everyone goes to the bathroom, so everyone can relate to that. The terms that I use to name these products are everyday terms that people are used to hearing, so I just try to combine the two to come up with something halfway decent that's funny, Mary said. She also says that all the poop used in her products are locally sourced. Nice. The terms are all local, she says. We just go out and track the moose. I have found that when a moose takes a dump, you walk about 50 yards in any direction and they take another dump. She sells her products on Facebook and Etsy. She's got creations called Unbelievables, where she's got poop with leaves. She's got deer rings, which are earrings made of poop. Wow. She's got something called the poo-poo clock, which is a clock which uses...
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I apologize to all our listeners that can't see this, but Jeff is passing around some wonderful photographs.
Yeah, so she's...
You're right.
She's literally selling... She's literally selling moose poop she finds outside to people across the country for profit. Quote, I get $5 a turd for these things, so I get excited when I see a turd. So you can visit... Tirdy Works, Tirdy, on Facebook or Etsy.
Oh, this is...
She's at Tirdy Works. And actually, when I went out to her Facebook page this week, she was actually traveling to California to be on the Comedy Central Tosh 0.0 or 2.0 or Tosh whatever it is show. So anyway, if you're looking for that unique gift for someone that you want to send a message to, you might want to check out Tirdy Works.
All right, well, I do have a...
You win.
I win?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's it. Game over. I have a Secret Santa thing I've got to buy something for, so this may be...
Act fast.
To Jeff, and we're not going to... We won't push the episode into like an explicit language warning, but...
I didn't bring that one up, did I?
No, you didn't. There was one product on this printout that you didn't mention, and we don't have to say the name of it.
I don't know.
But it's They look like popsicles.
But they're not. Right. Don't eat them.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you would do with them, so I didn't bring that one up.
Yeah, that's probably good. Okay. Well, I was going to go to lunch here, but now I'm good. I'm good for the day.
As Joe Bob would say, check it out. But anyway, if you've got a suggestion for our Entrepreneur Exchange Small Business of the Month, please email them to us at exchange@themesh.tv. And like Debbie Sawyer, we'll be receiving our prize pack from the Entrepreneur Exchange. So that's hopefully just in time for Christmas.
Maybe we should. This could be some nice.
There's a lot of Christmas gifts that could come out.
A lot of stuff there. So we want to thank Chris Frye, Alan Jackson. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope everyone checks out the Footcandles Film podcast that is on the Mesh Podcast Network.
That's correct.
themesh.tv. And there are a lot of cool podcasts out there on themesh.tv, so you should be checking them all out.
We will be, I think, in the next few weeks, be hitting our end of the year, best of the year films that we do, probably in early part of January. So be on the lookout for that as we list the ones we saw here in 2018 that stood out for us. So
looking forward to that. So we want to thank the Mesh Podcast Network. We want to wish everyone the best out there. Hope everyone has a great holiday season, and we will look forward to talking with you again soon.
Merry Christmas.
All right, thanks.
And happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.